Hi there, my name is Eugenia, and today we're going to be examining the style, hair, and makeup of women in the 1920s. We're going to be focusing specifically on flappers, and at the end of this video, I'm going to have a tutorial for you guys on how to do your hair and makeup like a flapper. I hope you guys enjoy, and let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so what is a flapper? Well, a flapper usually wears short dresses, has short hair, wears a lot of makeup, and drinks at speakeasies because it is the time of prohibition, so alcohol was illegal, and smokes, dances, and although not necessary, can enjoy casual sex. In the 1920s, a flapper's lifestyle was absolutely revolutionary, and it would pave the path for the freedom of expression for women in generations to come. This began in 1920 with the U.S. Congress passing the 19th Amendment in the Constitution. The 19th Amendment stated that women can vote. This was an enormous step for women in coming closer to equality with men. This newfounded liberty was celebrated and gave women the freedom of choice. Women were also becoming more independent because of the Great War. They couldn't rely as heavily on men as they did before. They had to go into the workforce and make a living for themselves. Not to say that all women did this or that all women were flappers, as the majority of women were still homemakers. A lot of the older generation was still stuck in the past of the Victorian ways. A lot of women were intrigued by this recently developed lifestyle as it gave them independence to express themselves through their fashion, hair, and makeup, as well as their overall life choices and sexuality. This is the generation where the modern or new woman was born. So where did these women get their idea for their new hair and makeup style? This new hair and makeup style was adopted by flappers, but originally worn by sex workers and actresses. This is one of the main reasons as to why flappers were so shocking in their time. The hair and makeup that was worn was because women were taking back their sexuality. They were breaking the social norms to show that they were taking control over their own bodies. They were outwardly showing the world that they were independent and that they governed their own physicality. Flappers were breaking away from the conventional archetype of a Victorian woman, as well as what a woman should be, created by a patriarchal society. I'll go ahead and insert a picture right over here of a Gibson girl, and this is what women in the Victorian era aspire to look like. But let's go ahead and talk about the new style of the flappers. I'll go ahead and insert a picture here of what a flapper would look like. So this is the first time in the US that we see women wearing dresses that expose their calves. This may not seem like a big deal nowadays, but in the Victorian era, women didn't even show their ankles as that was considered promiscuous. So this was a big deal. So women didn't wear corsets like they used to in the Victorian era. They would wear something more like this. It wouldn't be like a corset in the Victorian era that had boning that would cinch their waist. A corset like this was created in order to create the appearance of a flattened bust and butt for a woman and a more straightened silhouette. Their dresses were actually pretty comfortable. They weren't form-fitting. They were quite the opposite. They were pretty baggy. So this new fashion was quite ghastly for the older generation, as it was a very drastic change. I mean, from this to this, yeah, that's quite a lot. This was the era of the silent silver screen and entertainment business. Women idolized celebrity styles of women like Clara Bow, Josephine Baker, and Greta Garbo. They were the it girls, which is another way of saying the sex symbols of their time. This was the beginning of people admiring celebrities and following them in their footsteps for the latest, trendiest styles. So, getting into hair. Women started rocking the short or boyish haircuts. They were right above or at chin length. This new style was called the bob. Different types of hair textures were also popularized during this time, especially curly hair. Women would even begin getting permanent waves in their hair. In 1906, Charles Nessler created the Nessler machine. I know, it looks like a torture device. When women started getting these bobbed hairstyles and wanted permanent curls in their hair, they would use the Nessler machine to create these permanent waves. The Nessler machine had metal units at the end of it, which was used to wrap the hair around in a croquignole wrapping technique. This croquignole wrapping technique would allow women to create this style, the very distinguishable 1920s finger wave. If you didn't want permanent curls in your hair, there were other methods of creating curls. There were a few ways to create the finger waves into the hair. One would be using waving lotion and slowly form the finger wave shape. Another way was to use an iron. The Marcel iron is actually used in the hair industry even today. Mr. Marcel Gratteau, or otherwise known as François Marcel, was a beauty industry mastermind and created the first curl iron, or the Marcel iron, in 1872. So the Marcel iron were iron tongs that were placed in a gas burner and then put on the hair to form the Marcel waves. The tongs always had to be kept hot in order for the hair to curl. This was quite the process, as you had to put it back into the gas burner and then put it on your hair and then back into the gas burner and then on your hair until your style is completely finished. Then in 1923, the Marcel iron was finally electric. This was obviously very popularized as it made people's lives so much easier, and with this new iron, it created the beautiful Marcel wave. So thanks to Mr. Marcel, we now have the curling iron, and he went on to create other machines such as the permanent wave machine, barber's clippers, safety razors, and other devices that are used in the industry today. A very notable woman in the early 1900s is Sarah Breedlove, or better known as Madame C.J. Walker. Madame Walker began to lose her hair because of a scalp condition, and she began to experiment with home remedies. After many trials, she created Madame Walker's wonderful hair grower. With her innovatory creation and superlative sales and marketing skills, she went on to create a beauty empire, making her the first self-made African-American woman millionaire. Another legendary African-American woman was Josephine Baker. She was a renowned dancer in her earlier career. Apart from her renowned dancing, she was also a hair, makeup, and fashion icon. Her lustrous hair was actually a result of putting egg whites in her hair. I guess people had to get really creative back then. So, moving on to makeup. Max Factor metamorphosed the beauty industry with makeup. In 1904, he emigrated from Lodz, Poland to the US. Max Factor was actually the creator of the name makeup. He was a pretty big deal. His makeup, and especially the flexible grease paint, which is equivalent to foundation nowadays, was very popular with movie stars because it wouldn't cake up or crack under the hot studio lights. In 1920, he releases a whole line of makeup called Society Makeup to the general public, which allows women to recreate celebrity looks. Then in 1928, he goes on to create lip gloss, which at the time was called lip pomade. So what was very prominent in the makeup back then was the very thin plucked eyebrows, and then of course you would use a eye pencil to go ahead and bring it out and down towards the temples. Also, what was very prominent were the lips, the very pointy Cupid's bow lips. Which was made famous by Clara Bow. And then of course you had the flexible grease paint, which is equivalent to foundation nowadays. You could also use powder foundation, and the foundation is usually a tone lighter than someone's original skin tone. The reason for that was they really wanted to make the eyes and the lips pop. So they created a lighter canvas in order to make that happen. Then of course you have the very smoky eyes. This was created to make a deeper effect for the eyes, create a little bit of depth. This was created with black grease pencil that was smudged, and therefore creating the smoky effect. Then of course you have rouge, which came into powder, cream, or liquid form, and that was eminent to finish up the makeup look. Alrighty, so now that we've discussed as to why fashion, hair, and makeup was so important in the 1920s, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how to do your hair and makeup for the 1920s. So we're gonna start off by doing a wet finger wave with waving lotion. And then I'm gonna show you how to do a dry finger wave with a Marcel iron on this side. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do my makeup and go ahead and show you guys what the most popular makeup was during that time. So let's go ahead and dive right into it.